welcome back to BetRacingNation. Much quicker breaks than normal. We can't even go out and make a cup of tea anymore. But let's go over to Tom. Hopefully he's not making a cup of tea. Let's get the views from the audience.
I'd love a cup of Pete. As much as Jeff says that we're boring the pants off, I'm sure he's happy to be pulling the pants down of some of his punters, although remarks that not enough of them are coming to him. Mo Charge shares your concerns, Jeff, on Twitter, and he says, as a betting shop owner, he fears tomorrow with no TV, the weather forecast, and he thinks he's really going to struggle to attract those customers tomorrow. I'd like to hear whether Jeff sort of echoes those sentiments. What we've also got with regards to the stewards thing, we obviously have covered that, but James Dietz says the stewards are a joke. I can't remember the last time when a horse was disqualified. If you've got an example of that, please pitch it, and I'll throw it over to the panel for a bit of discussion. Stephen Turtle says it's okay, but why Good Friday? Have a day without racing. It won't damage the industry, it won't damage the viewers. Just stick it all together on a Sunday with a better quality card. Kieran of Monkey Tips tweets in saying that horse racing is just now an entertainment business. It's as simple as that. Creating a spectacle is not great for racing, probably not. See where you're coming from there, and from the eyes of punters it seems as though this is a great, more racing, brilliant, lovely all-weather championships to look forward to, but really let's think about those jockeys who have got to pile up and down the country. We've really got to bear that in mind. And it's something that Paul touched on earlier, very interesting stuff. Keep those tweets coming in about Good Friday racing, certainly more to be discussed by the panel.
Absolutely. You've got some interesting points about field sizes. I mean, we've touched on it and the fixtures itself. I mean, I find it quite surprising that we're pushing a Good Friday. We've got, I think, 10 meetings, or maybe on Saturday, or 9 or 10 with the afternoon. We've got 2 on Sunday.
Well, we've got a 20% drop in field sizes in the last 4 years alone. In the same period, the number of fixtures has increased by 5%. So we've got 5% more racing and a 20% drop in field sizes. I mean, the numbers just simply do not stack up. They don't.
Is it from a point of view, are we saturated with it every 10 minutes?
Of course, yes, we are saturated with racing.
And you think that bores the pants off people?
I'm certain it bores the pants. I'm not in any doubt about it. If you look at if you look at what people are saying in all the forums, and I don't think anybody seems to take any notice of what the regular punter, the ordinary racegoer, has to say about this kind of thing. And I think another key point that we mustn't forget is that the tracks themselves have driven the product onto weekends and festivals at the expense of the rest of the calendar. I understand that you can't have fantastic racing every single day, but I think we've become so top heavy. I mean, I don't understand. For example, I looked at the paper yesterday when I was flying back from a bit of skiing yesterday, and I noticed slightly. So just to emphasise, it's a real tan. Yeah. But the fact is that I looked at it, and you've got 2 fantastic cards, Cheltenham and Newmarket. Terrific cards. And then we had Sedgefield, we had Beverley, we had Southall. Why on earth did we have Southall yesterday? What was the point of having Southall?
To watch Golden Way, we feel
the horse why are we saturated? And then we had Dundalk in the evening, which we can't forget.
He's not too concerned about the quality of racing.
He's thinking about his pocket.
No, he's not. He's thinking about not necessarily the quality of racing, but competitive racing. That's what you're looking for.
It's another thing. I mean, the Southall card was a matinee card, so it was almost an evening meeting. So we're moving on to
somebody that nobody goes to see and nobody watches.
Well, how many people come out of work and go into the betting shop and watch the evening card? If they come out of the betting shop and the racing's finished, Newmarket was a great card, Cheltenham was a great card.
But every time I pass a betting shop, they're empty. Unless and when you walk in there, most of the people, if there are people, they are playing the machines. And I think we've got to call a spade here. Betting shops are not about racing anymore. The business is machines. That's where they make all the money. And I think any other arguments are a fiction. It's a nonsense. It's an argument. Oh, we must have racing every 10 minutes. And if we put on more racing, we make more money. It's totally false.
I mean, Newmarket and Cheltenham. The horses running at Newmarket and Cheltenham didn't start off running at Newmarket and Cheltenham. They ran at Southall and Sedgefield and the smaller tracks.
But also the point I think Jeff makes we will have at some point, I think obviously this summer, certainly towards October, September, October, we will have 30 runner fields, handicaps on a Saturday. And yet the racing in midweek will be 4 or 5 runners. And that's what you mean by top heavy.
That's exactly what I mean. And sorry, but just one last point, Paul, is that after Cheltenham, which was fantastic, amazing, everybody enjoyed Cheltenham, what a great festival it was, well done Jockey Club for running such a good and well-ordered festival. But after that, we were treated to a diet for the following ensuing at least fortnight, possibly 3 weeks. 75% of the meetings were all-weather fixtures. Now, why have we got a situation where we got 6 meetings, for example, yesterday, and we don't have any meetings to support, to keep the betting public interested, to keep the racing fans interested in the product between Cheltenham and Aintree? It was nothing. It was horrific. So we were sitting in our office looking at we were bored. Never mind the customers.
From a jockey's point of view, you represent them. Presumably they don't mind this amount of racing because they get more rides.
There is that, but at the same time, so Martin Dwyer, I know, I was speaking to him at Newmarket this week. Bank holiday Monday, Easter Monday, he's going to Redcar for 1 ride. Now, that's the life of a jockey. It's a horse he's ridden before. If he doesn't go up and it wins, he won't ride it again. The relationship with the trainer, etc., etc. Even if the horse wins that race, Martin also, he won't make money at all unless it wins. He'll be out of pocket because of his £118. He'll be spending a fortune on diesel or petrol for the 500-mile round trip.
Where is this?
Redcar. He's valet fee, agent fees. He pays 3% PJA subs, etc. Even if he wins, I haven't looked at the card, but I'm pretty certain it'll be a £2,000 to £3,000 max to the winner. His 7% of that is no great shakes. So even if he wins, he's not going to be making much money, and it's flogging up the right.
Is there too many jockeys then?
Well, there's the average, £7.5 grand that the racetracks are getting per race, and they're only feeding £2 or £3 grand back in prize.
But look, the bottom line is, and whilst a lot of what Jeff is saying has merit, the funding of British racing means we're stuck with it for the time being. So just because I don't bet at Southall doesn't mean there isn't someone, and just because they're not in betting shops, I can't remember the last time I placed a betting shop because it's all online and on the internet now, whether through your phone or whether I'm texting you or whatever. And just because I don't bet at Southall doesn't mean someone doesn't. And whilst I think there's too much racing, and you would, from a jockey's perspective, 90,000 runners last year, if there were 90,000 runners off 100 fewer fixtures, it doesn't actually matter to jockeys and actually might make it more economical for them.
There are the number of jockeys at the lower end of the scale that must struggle because of I know it's a different subject altogether, but you talk about low-grade racing, with the prize money involved in some of these events as well, there must really be...
It is a struggle for the vast majority of jockeys to make it pay.
How does that get better? What do you...
Well, this is where we're talking. Funny enough, we're going to see the ROA Council next week to talk about the finances of being a jockey. The guys at the top, particularly on the flat, are probably making more money than they've ever done. Because you look at prize money levels, forecast this year to be 120 million, albeit spread across a lot of fixtures. But that'd be a record. And with the internationalisation of racing, jockeys can go to Dubai or Qatar in the winter. Ryan Moore won countless races throughout the summer last year overseas, and these are big, high-value races. So the top guys are making a lot of money. The average flat jockey's annual salary, 30 grand, is the same as the average Premier League footballer's weekly salary. And it is really difficult for them to make it pay, and it is so competitive. But it's not, so people say, well, why do they do it? Because it's not a job. You're not stuck behind a desk. It is a job that it's hard, and particularly in the summer, and the more you go through the summer for a flat jockey, flogging up and down the motorway from afternoon to evening, maybe 1 ride here, 2 rides there.
Do you get involved
non-runners getting dropped off?
I was just going to ask Paul, would not most of your members prefer there to be, take the £1 million that's being invested in the card tomorrow, would they not prefer that money was invested in cards, associated cards throughout the winter, for example, that they've been working at, instead of the top jockeys turning up and cherry-picking it?
There's an element of that, but I am pleased to see some of the loyalty shown by the owners and trainers who are racing tomorrow, which is great. The Arena have put £1 million to upgrade these 50-odd races over the winter, and they've been great. But it's not going to happen overnight. You can bemoan low-grade all-weather racing, which is no different to low-grade turf racing, other than turf's more aesthetically pleasing and people just like it more. But you can't keep bemoaning it and not doing anything about it. And at least Arena are trying to do something about it. And there's been a drain of horses away from the all-weather during the winter, whether that's because of the lure of Dubai and the prize money offer there, whether it's because the programme,
And that's becoming more alluring as well for jockeys to go to mate.
A lot of the all-weather diet this winter has been seriously low fields. Seriously low fields.
Very quickly before we go to Billy's opinion, did you take much money on Maidan? Because that's doing more.
Maidan's very popular.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, of all the all-weather fixtures, the fixtures that we take the most money is Dundalk.
Right.
Again, but you do have big, larger competitive fields, and at the end of the day, people are more interested. But the more competitive the racing is, the more of a sport it becomes, the more people are prepared to engage in it.
Billy?
No, absolutely. Just on Paul's point, I mean, Jockey is, I can see what the finances is like. If I owned a horse and Jockey had travelled to the race course to ride my horse and it's a non-runner for whatever reason, I wouldn't, absolutely pay the jockey. You wouldn't even imagine that everyone didn't pay the jockey for turning up.
Well, we might have a lot of all-weather races where jockeys, 4 or 5 of them would be getting paid, and a number of non-runners and self-certifications were getting. That's
what I said. I mean, the problem is there a shortage of jockeys? It's a love, isn't it? You've got to be. You got to love doing it. And
there's no shortage of jockeys, but it's an interesting point about non-runners, and non-runners are a huge issue for racing. It's about 1 in every 10 declarations now.
And not just Southwell claimers either.
Oh no, it's not just Southwell claimers, but it is a huge problem. If you look at Racing Victoria, and Racing Victoria have 72-hour declarations, not just 48, and a very inclement climate. They'd have more extremes of weather than we would. So with variations in going, you pay a scratching fee if you don't run after declaration. You pay a full riding fee to the jockey if you don't run after declaration. And we, as a sop to 48-hour declarations, declaring non-runners is too easy.
Do you fallouts with trainers and jockeys in that situation? I mean, a trainer's entered a horse.
It's difficult. No, because a jockey's rides come from trainers and owners, and it's like any self-employed person having a row with someone that's providing you with the opportunity to earn a living isn't a clever idea. But non-runners isn't just an issue for jockeys. It's a huge issue for racing and for punters. Quality drives turnover. Everyone knows that. Windsor on Monday, they had a cracking little sprint. Pontefract had decent races and always do midweek. And they, for me personally, they're the ones that interest me as a punter, and that's my, where 1993 when I got into racing was from working in a betting shop and punting. You need the other cards because not all horses are quality horses.
It's a curiosity, isn't it? To enter a horse at Wolverhampton where nothing changes, the surface is always the same. Maybe there's more clouds or less clouds, and then they withdraw.
Just because we are going to take a break soon, let's go over to Tom for more interaction.
Yeah, well, if there's anything that you want to take away from this show tonight, you heard it here first. Paul Struthers says Martin Dwyer's going up to Redcar for one ride on Easter Monday. Keep your eyes peeled for that one. I'll certainly have a couple of pennies on it. Jeff Banks has made a friend on Twitter in the shape of Mo Charge. Simply says it's impossible to watch a horse race uninterrupted in my shops now. There's over 350 events a day. I agree with Jeff Banks. How many of your panel will go to the local betting shop to watch a race? True racing fans bet online on their phones, on an apps, and watch it on the TV. I do have to disagree with that point, I'm afraid, Mo. I'd love to get down to the course personally and be within that betting jungle. Jamie Brownlow about Southwell. Do we need Southwell? He says, of course you do. Some horses act on the fibre sand. They prefer that to a lot of others, and trainers have to use courses like this with their horses. Horses for courses, isn't it? Matt finally comes in and says, why does the BHA not recognise the fixture list? 1 day off a week, one fixture in 4 points of the map per day minimum. Can't we agree on that? And then goes on to say, true racing fans surely go to the races. Quite right. Well, with 2 race cards in France tomorrow, loads of racing in America, a race card in South Africa, I wonder whether they're sitting in a studio getting hot under the collar and red in the face arguing about it as well. I don't think so. What's the fuss?
Is there any points on those Twitters that you'd like to quickly go before we go to go last break?
Well, I think Mo Charge is not only is he good looking but very wise. Yeah. Very wise.
We are going to be talking the final part. I don't know how much you can talk about this, but obviously recently at Aintree we had the start. We've had Brendan Powell today with Battle Group. I don't know how much we'll get out of Paul on that subject. And also the well-being of some of the jockeys that are out at the moment, including Jason Maguire. We'll be back after this short break.